12 hours remained until the human ultimatum expired. The council chamber had become a war room filled with desperate voices and frantic planning. The Primarch's 6 eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, while his advisors brought increasingly bad news with each report. The hegemony's fortress worlds are under siege, reported a trembling aide. 3 billion Zephyrians have surrounded the capital cities. They are not attacking, just waiting. War Chief Sarthex slammed his massive fist against his throne. Impossible. Our defensive systems could destroy them all. That is exactly what they want you to try, came a new voice from the chamber's entrance. A figure stepped forward. It was former Counselor Veltar of the Machine Synthesis, his mechanical body showing signs of recent battle damage. Veltar? Speaker Vel9's energy patterns flickered with confusion. You were supposed to be organizing our counterattack. The machine being's red eyes dimmed with what might have been exhaustion. There is no counterattack. My fleets engaged a human task force 6 hours ago. We were defeated. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. The Machine Synthesis had the most advanced warships in Council space. If they could not stand against the human alliance, what hope did the others have? How? Counselor Drex9 demanded. Your vessels are superior to anything these primitives could build. Beltar's form sagged slightly. Superior individual technology, perhaps. But they did not fight us ship to ship. They fought us as a coordinated fleet with perfect communication and tactical awareness. He activated his internal projectors, showing holographic recordings of the battle. The Council's ships moved in the traditional formation, each captain commanding independently, following ancient battle protocols that emphasized individual glory. The human alliance fleet moved like a single organism. Ships that should have been enemies worked in perfect harmony. Quilarian crystal ships provided energy for human kinetic weapons. Zephyrian bioships repaired damage while Tertian stealth vessels struck from impossible angles. They have created something we never imagined possible, Veltar continued. A military force where every being knows their role and trusts their allies completely. We fought 12 different species working as one mind. The Primarch's voice cracked with desperation. Then we must negotiate. Surely they will be reasonable if we offer them favorable terms. But even as he spoke, more reports arrived. The 3 council species that had already made separate peace agreements were broadcasting their surrender ceremonies across the galaxy. Other member species were openly discussing following their example. The Void Singers have agreed to relocate all their hunting preserves to uninhabited worlds, Subcommander Kethlas reported with obvious shame. They are apologizing to the species they hunted for sport. The Quantum Syndicate is returning all stolen technologies to their original creators, added another aide. They claim it is necessary to avoid consequences. Speaker Vel9's energy form flared with anger. Cowards. They abandon us at the first sign of resistance. But War Chief Sarthex was looking at the tactical displays with growing horror. Look at the deployment patterns. The human fleets are not positioned to destroy us quickly. They are positioned to starve us slowly. He was right. Instead of massing for decisive battles, the Alliance forces had spread out to cut supply lines and communication networks. Council worlds were being isolated from each other, unable to coordinate any meaningful response. They learned from studying us, Counselor Drex9 realized with dawning horror. They know our logistics systems, our command structures, our weaknesses. A new holographic transmission activated in the chamber. This time it showed Captain Taman standing in what appeared to be a command center staffed by beings from dozens of different species. Counselors, he said with professional courtesy, we thought you should see what is happening on your own worlds. The display split into multiple screens showing different locations across Council space. On each screen, the same scene was playing out. Local populations were gathering in massive peaceful demonstrations, demanding their freedom from Council rule. The hegemony's mining colonies, Taman narrated calmly. The workers have stopped production and are requesting immediate evacuation to free species worlds. The crystalline orthodox manufacturing worlds. The assembly line workers have declared independence and are forming their own government. The ethereal collective's research stations. The test subjects have broken out of their containment and are destroying the experimental equipment. Screen after screen showed the collapse of Council authority. Not through violence or conquest, but through simple refusal to continue serving their oppressors. You see, Captain Taman explained, we did not need to conquer your territory. We simply had to show your subjects that resistance was possible. The Primarch's voice was barely a whisper. This is not war. This is the end of civilization. No, came a gentle voice. The transmission changed to show Dr. Boram in what appeared to be a medical facility. Around her, former slaves from dozens of species were receiving treatment and education. This is the beginning of civilization. Real civilization, based on cooperation instead of domination. She gestured to her patients. These beings have created art, music, and literature that your council never allowed them to share. They have solved mathematical problems and developed technologies that your restrictions prevented them from pursuing. The camera panned across a classroom where young beings from different species learned together. Their different physiologies required special accommodations, but they helped each other overcome these challenges. When you free people to be their best selves, amazing things happen, Dr. Boram continued. When you force them to be slaves, you waste the potential of entire civilizations. The transmission ended, leaving the council members alone with their thoughts. Outside their chamber, their perfect order was crumbling. Inside, they faced a choice that no amount of power or authority could solve for them. 6 hours, the Primarch said finally. We have 6 hours to decide the fate of our civilization. But even as he spoke, it became clear that the decision was being made for them. More member species were announcing their withdrawal from council authority. More worlds were declaring independence. More fleets were negotiating their own surrender to the Free Species Alliance. The age of the Galactic Council was ending, not with a great battle, but with a simple realization spreading across the galaxy. They no longer had to obey. And in the face of that realization, all the power and authority in the universe meant nothing at all. The counselors sat in their towering thrones and watched their empire dissolve like salt in water. Soon they would have to choose between clinging to the past or accepting an uncertain but hopeful future. The clock continued counting down to humanity's deadline, but everyone in the chamber already knew what the answer would be. 3 months had passed since the fall of the Galactic Council. The same crystal chamber on Nexus Prime that had once housed the trial of humanity now buzzed with very different energy. Where 12 towering thrones had once dominated the space, hundreds of smaller seats now formed concentric circles around a central speaking platform. Ji Wu stood at that platform, but she was no longer alone. Beside her stood representatives from dozens of species, former slaves and former masters, working together to build something entirely new. The first session of the Galactic Congress will now begin, she announced. Her voice carried the same quiet confidence it had 3 months ago, but now it was amplified by hope instead of defiance. The galleries above were packed with observers, but unlike the silent, fearful audiences of the old council, these beings talked freely among themselves. Translators worked frantically to convert hundreds of languages into forms that others could understand. In the front row of the congressional seats sat the former counselors. They looked smaller now, stripped of their ceremonial robes and towering thrones. Some appeared resigned to their fate. Others seemed genuinely curious about what would replace their old system. The Primarch raised one of his 6 arms. Speaker Jiwoo, the former council requests permission to address this assembly. There were murmurs throughout the chamber. Many species still harbored deep anger toward their former oppressors, but Jiwoo nodded calmly. Former counselor, you may speak. The Primarch stood slowly, his massive form still impressive even without his throne. We wish to offer our formal apology to all species who suffered under council rule. We believed we were bringing order to the galaxy. Instead, we brought only pain. His words were transmitted across the galaxy to billions of beings. On some worlds, the response was anger and demands for punishment. On others, there was cautious acceptance of this first step toward reconciliation. However, the Primarch continued, I must ask, how will this Congress avoid the chaos that destroyed previous galactic governments? How will you make decisions with so many voices demanding to be heard? It was a fair question. The old council had maintained order through strict hierarchy and absolute authority. The Congress faced the challenge of governing through consensus and cooperation. Legal expert Minho stepped forward to answer. He was a quiet man who had spent months working with representatives from hundreds of species to draft the new galactic charter. The answer is simple in concept but difficult in practice, he said. We will make decisions slowly, carefully, and with the consent of those affected by them. It will be messy. It will be frustrating. But it will be fair. He activated a holographic display showing the new governmental structure. Instead of the old council's pyramid of power, it resembled a complex web of interconnected circles. Local decisions are made by local governments. Regional issues are handled by regional assemblies. Only matters affecting the entire galaxy come to this Congress. And even then, no decision can be imposed on any species that does not consent to it. Former Counselor Drex9's mechanical form sparked with confusion. But what about species that make poor decisions? What about conflicts between neighboring worlds? Who will maintain order? Captain Taman stood to answer this question. He now wore the uniform of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, an organization that included former soldiers from both sides of the recent conflict. Order is not something that can be imposed from above, he said. It must grow from below, from communities that choose to work together for their mutual benefit. He gestured to the diverse audience in the galleries. Look around you. 3 months ago, many of these species had never met each other except as slaves and masters. Today, they are partners in building a better galaxy. The display changed to show success stories from across known space. Former Zephyrian slaves were now teaching advanced biotechnology to other species. Quilarian crystal engineers were helping human colonies develop better energy systems. Even some of the former council species were contributing their expertise to joint projects. But what about conflicts? Pressed War Chief Sarthax. What happens when species cannot agree on solutions? Dr. Boram stepped forward with a gentle smile. Then they keep talking until they find a solution that works for everyone. It takes longer than simply imposing a decision by force, but the results last longer too. She activated her own display showing mediation centers that had been established throughout the galaxy. We have discovered that most conflicts arise from misunderstanding or scarcity. When species can communicate freely and share resources fairly, most problems solve themselves. The session continued for hours as representatives from hundreds of species asked questions and voiced concerns. Some worried about security without the Council's military might. Others feared economic chaos without centralized trade regulations, but gradually a pattern emerged. The problems they worried about were already being solved by voluntary cooperation between species who had never been allowed to work together before. As the day's session drew to a close, Jiwoo stood once more at the central platform. The chamber had grown quieter as beings from across the galaxy listened to her words. 3 months ago, we came to this chamber as criminals accused of breaking galactic law. Today we gather as equals, committed to building a galaxy where such laws are no longer necessary. She looked up at the galleries filled with beings who had once been enemies. The old system promised order through submission. The new system offers something better, peace through cooperation. Former speaker Vel 9's energy patterns flickered uncertainly. But how can you be sure this will work? What if the experiment fails? Jiwoo's smile was patient and understanding. Then we will learn from our mistakes and try something better. That is what free beings do. They adapt, they grow, and they never stop reaching for something better than what they have. A vote was called on the new galactic charter. One by one, species representatives stood to cast their ballots. Some voted with enthusiasm, others with reluctance. A few abstained entirely, but when the counting was finished, the result was clear. By an overwhelming majority, the galaxy had chosen to embrace this new experiment in freedom and cooperation. As beings began filing out of the chamber, many stopped to talk with each other. Former enemies made tentative plans for trade agreements. Species that had been isolated for centuries discussed cultural exchange programs. Jiwoo remained at the platform, watching the slow miracle of cooperation unfold before her eyes. Captain Taman joined her along with Dr. Boram and the other humans who had started this revolution. Do you think it will work? Taman asked quietly. I think it will be messy and complicated and sometimes frustrating, Jiwoo replied. I think there will be setbacks and failures and moments when everyone wonders if we made a terrible mistake. She paused, watching as a group of former Zephyrian slaves helped a confused Primarch navigate the new congressional procedures. But I also think it will be beautiful. For the first time in galactic history, every sentient being has a voice in their own destiny. That is worth fighting for, no matter how difficult the path ahead might be. Outside the chamber, the work of building a new galaxy continued. Former slaves were becoming teachers and leaders. Former masters were learning to be partners instead of rulers. And somewhere among the billions of beings who called the galaxy home, the next generation was growing up in a universe where freedom was not a crime. The age of the Galactic Council had ended. The age of the Galactic Congress had begun, and in the archives of the new government, a simple plaque bore witness to the moment when everything changed. We did not come to rule. We came to free. Ambassador Jiwoo, first speaker of the Galactic Congress representing the species of Earth. The galaxy was vast enough for all of them, and now finally it belonged to all of them too. 24 hours had passed since the humans delivered their ultimatum. The council chamber buzzed with frantic activity as emergency sessions ran around the clock. Counselors who had ruled without question for millennia now faced the collapse of everything they had built. The Primarch paced back and forth on his massive throne, his 6 arms gesturing wildly as he spoke. This cannot be happening. 12 billion primitives cannot threaten 50,000 council worlds. But the reports kept coming in, each one worse than the last. Uprisings on 17 worlds. Trade routes cut by mysterious attacks. 3 council fleets had gone silent after attempting to investigate human positions. Speaker Vel-9's energy patterns flickered with panic. Our attempts to contact our client species have failed. The hegemony reports that their Zephyrian overseers have simply vanished. The mining operations on Keelar have gone completely dark. War Chief Sar Thex coiled nervously on his throne. His warriors were supposed to be the finest in the galaxy, but they had trained only for parades and ceremonial combats. None of them had experience with real warfare. How did they do it? He hissed. How did they organize so many species without our knowledge? The answer came from an unexpected source. A small holographic projector activated in the center of the chamber. The image showed a human woman in engineering coveralls, her hands stained with machine oil. I am Engineer Yi-Jun of the Free Species Alliance, she said calmly. The council wants to know how we accomplished what they thought was impossible. Allow me to explain. The hologram expanded to show a detailed cutaway of a starship, but this was not any single species design. It combined elements from dozens of different technological approaches. The council made a critical error, Yi-Jun continued. You assumed that primitive species had primitive technologies. But the Quilarians had developed quantum crystalline matrices 1,000 years before humans left Earth. The Zephyrians had mastered biological computers when your ancestors were still learning to work metal. New technical diagrams appeared in the display. Weapons that combined human kinetic energy principles with Tertian stealth fields, shields that merged Council standard deflector technology with Quilarian crystal enhancement. You kept these species separate and ignorant of each other's capabilities. But when we brought them together, when we let them share knowledge freely, they created technologies that none of us could have developed alone. Counselor Drex 9's mechanical form sparked with disbelief. Impossible. Our intelligence services would have detected such cooperation. Yi-Jun smiled. Your intelligence services relied on fear and isolation. You had no idea what these species were truly capable of because you never bothered to ask them. The display shifted to show a manufacturing facility hidden in an asteroid belt. Thousands of beings worked together. Humans providing organizational skills, Quilarians operating crystal forges, Zephyrians growing biological components, and dozens of other species contributing their unique abilities. While you debated and held ceremonies, we built. While you made speeches about order, we created freedom. And while you assumed we were weak, we became strong. A new voice cut through the chamber. It was Admiral Hyun-Soo, his image replacing Yi-Jun's. Counselors, I hope you have used your time wisely. You have 24 hours remaining. The Primarch's voice cracked with desperation. We need more time. The galaxy cannot be reorganized in 48 hours. The galaxy is already being reorganized, the Admiral replied, with or without your cooperation. As if to prove his point, new tactical displays appeared showing the current state of Council space. Entire sectors had gone dark as local populations revolted against their overseers. Supply convoys were being intercepted by ships that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Sub-Commander Kethlas of the Void Singers materialized in the chamber, his form barely holding together. Admiral, 3 of our member species have already negotiated separate peace agreements with the humans. They are abandoning the Council. This news struck the remaining counselors like a physical blow. If their alliance was fragmenting, they had even less time than they thought. Speaker Vel-9 tried one last desperate gambit. We demand to speak with your highest authority. This admiral cannot make decisions for an entire alliance. Admiral Hyunsu's expression did not change. I am not the highest authority in the Free Species Alliance. There is no highest authority. That is the point. The concept was so alien to the counselors that several of them simply stared in confusion. How could a government function without supreme rulers? Every member species has an equal voice in our decisions, the admiral explained. Every sentient being has rights that cannot be taken away by others. It is a simple concept, but apparently one your civilization never learned. War Chief Sarthex made one final attempt to assert council supremacy. Even if your alliance is real, you cannot match our military might. We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. Ruled through fear and oppression, came a new voice. The image changed to show Colonel Wu Jin standing on the bridge of a different ship. Behind her, the command crew included beings from at least a dozen species, all working together with quiet efficiency. Your military might exists only as long as your subjects believe they cannot resist you, but they can resist, and they are. The tactical display updated in real time, showing the spread of uprisings across council space. What had started as isolated revolts was becoming a coordinated campaign of liberation. The Zephyrians are no longer growing food for your cities. The Quilarians are no longer mining resources for your industries. The Tertians are no longer hiding in fear. And hundreds of other species are remembering what it means to be free. Counselor Drex 9 tried one last time to regain control of the situation. This is chaos. Without proper authority, the galaxy will tear itself apart. You mean without your authority, Colonel Wu Jin corrected. The species of this galaxy managed their own affairs for millions of years before the Council existed. They will do so again. The holographic communication system activated once more. This time it showed Jiwoo, still calm and composed despite everything that was happening. Counselors, she said formally, you have been given a choice. You can be part of the solution, or you can be part of the problem. But you cannot stop what is already happening. The Primarch's voice was barely a whisper. What do you want from us? Step down, Jiwoo said simply. Acknowledge that no species has the right to rule over others without their consent. Help us build something better than what you have created. And if we refuse? Jiwoo's expression was sad but determined. Then you will be remembered as the council that chose tyranny over freedom. Your species will survive, but your system will not. The communication ended, leaving the counselors alone with their impossible decision. Outside the chamber, their perfect galactic order was crumbling. Inside, they faced the choice between adaptation and extinction. For the first time in 3,000 years, the rulers of the galaxy were truly afraid. The age of unchallenged power was ending, and something new was being born in its place. Whether that something would include the old council or sweep it away entirely depended on the choice they would make in the next 24 hours. The chaos in the council chamber slowly died down as the Primarch restored order. His 6 eyes burned with anger as he stared down at Jiwoo. Around the galleries, thousands of beings waited to see how the council would respond to humanity's shocking accusations. These are lies, War Chief Sarthex hissed, his massive form coiling on his throne. The humans spread false propaganda to justify their criminal actions. But Jiwoo was not finished. She nodded to Dr. Boram, who touched her tablet again. The holographic display changed to show detailed records, trade agreements, and communication logs. These documents come from your own archives, Dr. Boram said quietly. Internal council communications discussing population management and resource optimization. Your own words condemn you. A particular document expanded in the hologram. It showed a council directive ordering the hegemony of scales to reduce the Zephyrian population by 30% to make room for mining operations. Speaker Vel 9's energy patterns flickered wildly. How did you access classified council records? This is impossible. Captain Taman stepped forward for the first time. His uniform bore no insignia that the council members recognized, but something about his bearing made the alien warriors pay attention. Nothing is impossible when you have friends, he said simply. When species across the galaxy finally have someone willing to listen to their stories. The display shifted again. This time it showed video recordings. Zephyrian farmers being forced from their land at gunpoint. Quilarian miners collapsing from exhaustion in toxic atmosphere. Tertian refugees living in makeshift shelters on asteroids afraid to go home. We did not spy on you from the shadows, Jiwoo explained. We simply ask the right questions to the right people. The species you have oppressed for centuries were eager to share their experiences with someone who cared. Counselor Drex 9's mechanical form sparked with electrical discharge. Even if these claims were true, which they are not, you are still criminals. You have violated sacred galactic law. You must be punished. Whose law? Captain Taman asked. Did the Zephyrians vote for leaders who would sell them into slavery? Did the Quilarians choose to work in death traps for your profit? They are not capable of such decisions. The Primarch roared. They are primitive beings who require guidance from their superiors. Dr. Boram smiled sadly. That is exactly what we expected you to say. She activated another program on her tablet, the holographic display filled with mathematical equations, star charts, and technical specifications. But these were not council documents. They showed sleek ship designs, advanced weapons systems, and defensive technologies. While you were debating our fate in this chamber, Jiwoo said, our fleets have been very busy. The gallery fell silent. Even the council members stopped their protests as they stared at the display. The Terran Defense Force currently has 743 vessels positioned throughout council space, Captain Taman reported in a matter-of-fact voice. They are not alone. New ship designs appeared in the hologram. Some were clearly human in origin, with clean lines and efficient engineering, but others showed alien aesthetics combined with human technology. Curved Zephyrian organic hulls equipped with human shield generators, Quilarian crystal matrices enhanced with human computer systems. You see, Dr. Boram explained, when you treat other species as slaves and cattle, you never bother to learn what they are truly capable of. The Zephyrians are natural biotechnologists. The Quilarians understand energy systems better than any council species. The Tertians have developed stealth technology you cannot imagine. Impossible, Speaker Vel 9 whispered. Our intelligence networks would have detected such activities. Jiwoo's smile was sharp as a blade. Your intelligence networks consist entirely of the species you oppress. For 3 years they have been telling you exactly what we wanted you to hear. The revelation hit the council like a physical blow. Their perfect information system, built on fear and submission, had been turned against them. The mining accident on Quilar 7 that killed 200 workers? Captain Taman said, that was no accident. It was a carefully planned operation to evacuate 3,000 Quilarians to freedom. The plague that swept through the Zephyrian agricultural worlds? Dr. Boram added. A fictional disease created to explain why so many workers were dying when they were actually being relocated to hidden colonies. The Tertian sightings in the outer rim that your forces could never track down? Jiwoo finished. Those were real. They were helping other species escape your control. The display changed one final time. It now showed the galaxy as it truly existed, not the neat, ordered map in the Council's records, but a complex web of hidden alliances, secret colonies, and underground networks. Hundreds of star systems glowed with new markers. Species that had been written off as extinct or primitive were revealed to be thriving in hidden locations. Trade routes that bypassed Council control connected desperate refugees with new homes. Ladies and gentlemen of the Council, Jiwoo said formally, allow me to introduce you to the Free Species Alliance. 847 member worlds, 12 billion sentient beings, all united by a single idea, that no species has the right to enslave another. The Primarch's voice shook with rage. You dare threaten us? We command 50,000 worlds! Our fleets have maintained order for 3 millennia. Your fleets, Captain Taman said quietly, are designed to intimidate helpless populations and fight ceremonial battles against each other. Our ships are built for actual war. As if summoned by his words, a new figure appeared in the holographic display. The image showed the bridge of a warship unlike anything the Council had ever seen. At its center stood a gray-haired human in a simple uniform. Counselors, the figure said, I am Admiral Hyun-Soo of the Free Species Alliance Navy. I wanted you to meet the FSS Liberation, flagship of our fleet. The camera pulled back to show the ship from outside. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Sleek human engineering merged with alien technologies to create something that looked alive and deadly. Admiral, Jiwoo said, please show our hosts how we have been spending our time. The display shifted to show sensor readings from around the galaxy. Fleets of similar ships appeared on the tactical map. They were positioned near every major Council world, every important space station, every critical resource center. "48 hours, Admiral Hyun-soo said calmly. That is how long you have to begin dismantling your system of oppression. Release all enslaved populations. Recognize the independence of species under your control. Allow free elections on all worlds. And if we refuse?" the Primarch demanded. The Admiral's expression did not change. "Then you will discover what happens when the prey decides to fight back." Warning signals began flashing around the council chamber as their own sensors detected the alien fleets. Panic spread through the galleries as the reality of the situation became clear. "You cannot do this," Counselor Drex9 shrieked. "We are the rightful rulers of this galaxy. We bring order to chaos. You bring slavery and call it order," Jiwoo replied. "You bring death and call it peace. That ends now." She looked up at the towering thrones one final time. 48 hours, counselors. Choose wisely. The galaxy is watching." The three humans turned and walked toward the exit. Behind them, the council chamber erupted into the greatest crisis in galactic history. The age of unchallenged power was ending, and the counselors could only watch as their perfect system crumbled around them. The massive crystal chamber stretched across the heart of Nexus Prime like a frozen ocean. 12 towering thrones rose from the polished floor, each one carved from different materials that reflected the nature of their occupants. The air hummed with energy as holographic displays flickered to life around the chamber's edges. Jiwoo walked through the entrance with steady steps. Her black diplomatic uniform bore no decorations except for a single blue patch showing Earth's continents. Behind her, Captain Taman moved with the quiet confidence of a soldier, while Dr. Boram carried a simple data tablet in her hands. The three humans looked small in the vast space, but they did not seem afraid. Thousands of beings filled the viewing galleries above. Some had scales that glittered like jewels. Others floated in transparent spheres filled with glowing gas. A few looked almost like metal machines, their eyes burning with cold light. They had all come to watch the trial of the human species. The Vorthak Primarch raised one of his 6 arms. His voice boomed across the chamber without any visible mouth moving. "The emergency session of the Galactic Council will begin. We gather today to address the matter of species 347b, known as humans." Jiwoo noticed how they did not use humanity's real name. Everything the Council did was designed to make other species feel small and unimportant. A floating sphere of light drifted forward. Inside, wisps of energy twisted like tiny storms. "I am Speaker Vel 9 of the Ethereal Collective," the voice whispered directly into everyone's minds. "We bring the first charge. The humans have established 17 colonies without proper authorization from this council." Murmurs rippled through the galleries. Unauthorized colonization was a serious crime in the galaxy. Only the council could decide which species deserved to expand beyond their home worlds. Captain Taman's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Jiwoo had briefed her team carefully. They would listen to all charges before responding. A massive creature covered in green scales slithered forward on its throne. "I am War Chief Sarthax of the Hegemony of Scales," it hissed. "We bring the second charge. Humans have interfered with our livestock management on 14 worlds. They claim our cattle are sentient beings and demand their freedom." The galleries erupted in discussion. Several species had similar complaints about human interference in their affairs. A mechanical being with glowing red eyes stood next. "I am Counselor Drex9 of the Crystalline Orthodoxy. We bring the third charge. Humans refuse to acknowledge the authority of this council over primitive species. They spread dangerous ideas about individual rights and self-determination." More voices joined the chorus of complaints. The Quantum Syndicate accused humans of stealing their technology. The Void Singers claimed humans had corrupted their sacred hunting grounds. The Metal Brotherhood said humans gave weapons to their worker drones. Each accusation painted humans as troublemakers who refused to follow galactic law. The pattern was clear. Humanity was being charged with the crime of not knowing their place. Finally, the Primarch's voice cut through the noise. "These are serious charges. The defendant species will now hear the Council's judgment." But Jiwoo stepped forward before he could continue. "Honored Primarch," she said in a clear voice that carried across the chamber, "we request the right to respond to these charges." Silence fell like a heavy blanket. In 3,000 years of Council history, no accused species had ever asked to defend themselves. They usually begged for mercy or tried to bargain for lighter punishment. The Primarch's multiple eyes focused on the small human woman. This is unusual. The Council does not typically allow responses from primitive species. Then perhaps, Jiwoo said with a slight smile, it is time for the Council to learn something new. The whispers in the galleries grew louder. Several counselors shifted uncomfortably on their thrones. This was not going according to their ancient protocols. Speaker Vel9's energy patterns flickered with what might have been anger. The human shows disrespect. She should be silenced, but Counselor Drex9 raised a metal hand. Let her speak. It will be amusing to hear primitive justifications before we pass sentence. The Primarch nodded slowly. Very well. The human representative may address this council. But know that your words will not change your fate. Jiwoo bowed her head respectfully. Thank you, honored Primarch. We have indeed established colonies without your permission. We have interfered with the affairs of other species. We have spread ideas about rights and freedom. We do not deny these charges. The admission sent shockwaves through the chamber. No species had ever confessed so openly to breaking council law. However, Jiwoo continued, before you pass judgment on humanity, we ask that you consider why we took these actions. Dr. Boram, if you would assist me. The quiet scientist activated her tablet. A massive holographic display materialized above the chamber floor. It showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with thousands of star systems marked in different colors. This is the current state of our galaxy, Jiwoo said. The green systems represent the council member species and their authorized territories. The yellow systems are independent worlds that pay tribute to the council. The red systems are classified as uninhabited or primitive. The map was beautiful and orderly. Everything had its place in the council's grand design. But then Dr. Boram touched her tablet again. New information appeared on the display. Population numbers, resource extraction rates, mortality statistics, trade agreements that looked more like slavery contracts. This is what we discovered when we began exploring beyond our home system, Jiwoo said. The Zephyrian worlds marked as agricultural partners in your records. Current population, 2.3 billion sentient beings working in conditions that would be illegal on any council world. War Chief Sarthex's scales rattled with anger. Those are not sentient beings. They are livestock. Cattle with basic tool use abilities. They build cities, Captain Taman said quietly. They write poetry. They mourn their dead and celebrate their children. We have seen their art and heard their songs. The gallery fell silent. Even the whispers stopped. Jiwoo touched the display, zooming in on another region. The Quillarian mining colonies. Your records show them as volunteer workers. The reality is a 40% annual mortality rate from unsafe working conditions. They are not volunteers. They are slaves. More data flowed across the holographic display. Each revelation was worse than the last. Species declared extinct that were actually hiding in the galaxy's dark corners. Worlds strip-mined until they could no longer support life. Trade agreements that amounted to protection rackets. The Tertian species. Dr. Boram said softly, your records declare them extinct 3 centuries ago after they refused to surrender their ocean worlds for council use. But they are not extinct. They live in deep space, afraid to return to their home because you still hunt them. The Primarch's voice had lost some of its commanding presence. You have been watching us? We have been learning, Jiwoo replied. And what we learned is that your galactic peace is built on the suffering of those too weak to resist you. 847 sentient species live under council rule. Only 12 have any voice in their own fate. She looked up at the towering thrones where the council members sat. So yes, we broke your laws. We interfered with your systems. We spread dangerous ideas about freedom and dignity. And we would do it all again. The chamber erupted in chaos as the implications of her words sank in. The trial of humanity had become something else entirely. It had become a trial of the Galactic Council itself.